AV experience where we're going to have everybody hate us because we're going to talk about projectors again. And everybody knows what happens when we talk about projectors. Everybody really dislikes me. And they do that already. So maybe it just makes it easier. I don't know. But I think this one's going to be, may surprise some people. It may not. But we'll see. We're joined this go round by John McAdoo and Sheldon Carpenter. They joined us on Monday in another impromptu thing, a projector comparison, where we pulled out Jonathan's projector collection out of mothballs and took a look at what was going on. And we looked at a bunch of different projectors, and I think it went how everybody expected. I don't think it was any different, at least from my perspective. I think that's what I thought was going to happen going in, but we're going to talk about everybody's perspective, how things went, and see what everybody thought. Maybe it'll be different. Maybe I'm completely wrong, because I was wrong about some stuff when I was voicing things there. And yeah, anyway, you guys doing all right this evening? It's just snowing at Sheldon's.
The clarity is amazing.
I mean, you're just in a rock video. That's all.
Yeah.
Maybe too close to a radioactive something artifact.
To make me look younger. I need all the help I can get.
I don't think that's what radioactive materials do. They usually go the other way. Not that way. But you got some radioactive snow going on. Glad you made it home safe, though maybe your hard drive didn't.
Yeah.
Casualty of the evening.
Mm-hmm.
And John, how are you?
Doing great, man.
Yeah?
Doing great.
Okay.
Did you guys sleep well last night after all the excitement? I've kind of felt like I didn't sleep very good. I was pretty riled up.
What were you riled up about?
Just excitement. I love this stuff.
He's ready to
get more projectors.
Throw hands. Get
6 is not enough.
Jeez. I don't
Finally
know.
Getting home at 1 a.m. and having to get up 5. That made me tired enough.
Yeah.
I wimped out. I didn't go to school.
Oh.
You didn't go to work?
Nope. I did not.
You
I hadn't taken a day yet this year, so. What?
You made him call a sub?
Oh, no. We cover each other.
Oh.
A sub is like more work than not having a sub.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. But you wussed out. I mean, I can't really say that I wussed out. I work from home.
Best thing. Yeah.
So I had a long commute to the office this morning. It was rough. It was rough. Well, Jonathan, I'm going to let you lead this discussion because you kind of led the comparison. And you've got a spreadsheet.
Sure.
And I think people will either be shocked or not shocked at all. So really that means nobody has any idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about this in advance. We had a little 5-minute prep session or so before this started to kind of make sure we were all on the same page. We're not going to squash opinions. We want everyone to have independent thought. And if we don't agree, that's fine. You're going to have probably 4 different opinions here to some degree, just because it's 4 different people. One of the things I learned last night, or just further confirmed, is that I think people see differently. And I've been feeling that way. It's been kind of ramping up. And I'd already kind of discovered that in audio too, that people hear differently. And I think I'm coming to the conclusion pretty strongly that people see differently too. The audio thing that I'm talking about, I remember going to like a speaker contest at DL Beck's, and Sheldon was there, so he'll remember this one as well. I think you were at that one where they did a comparison between the JTR and a SOC tower. And it was like just a 2-speaker blind shootout. And we listened to quite a bit of different music. You really had no idea which was which because it was all behind this giant cloth that they bought at Joann's that was a speaker grill cloth, and it covered the whole front of the room. You didn't know what was playing. They sounded dramatically different. And people had very strong preferences. And I remember in that competition or in that little shootout, getting chills on one of the speakers over and over and over again, and the other speaker never even moving me. And in this case, it was the JTR that was doing it for me, and the SOC was not. And at the end, I thought, man, this is just going to be a blowout. Like it's going to be, everyone's going to love the JTR, and the SOC's just going to get crushed. And the SOC speaker at the end of it, what was it, like a 60-40 or a 70-30? I have to go back and look at the thread. It was not a blowout.
It was barely more JTR than SOC.
Yeah,
it was really close.
It was like a 2/3 type range preference, as I recall. And that really just surprised me because I thought, like, how could How can that be? How can I have so much emotion coming from this other speaker and someone else has the opposite? This is more interesting even to me that it's still, because you could say, well, maybe it was the room harmonics and the modes and nulls that were created and somebody over in the other side of the room got a different experience than you did. But that's not the case.
It was
In
such
this
a big
instance,
room.
It was a big room, a very wide room. And I
Mhm.
sat immediately next to a guy who was singing praises at the end, we were all talking about what we liked and what we didn't like. And we just kind of chewing the cud, talking through what we learned. The guy immediately next to me, as much as I liked the JTR, he liked the SOC. We were like polar ends of the spectrum sitting immediately next to each other. I
Was
thought
it
that was,
David?
no, I don't even remember who it
No,
was.
I know it wasn't. It was in David's room, but yeah.
Yeah. But it was eye opening to me that I think until that point, and this is probably 10 years ago, maybe even more. Until that point, I kind of
Yeah,
thought
more than 10.
that people would generally gravitate towards the same thing if it was set up properly and if there was a blind test and like people were more or less the same. Like good audio is good audio to all people.
Now these were level matched.
They were, yes, level
Mhm.
match, blind tested. I don't remember if there's EQ. We'd have to go back and find the
Were
thread
there
or not.
subs involved?
They sounded very dramatically different. DL Beck was the host, the guy we're going to next weekend.
Were there subs involved?
I don't think so. I think it was just,
Did you put
Ooh.
on a?
we'd have to check. It's been a long time.
Okay, I
So
won't ask
that's
any questions
tough
then.
because I remember he had another blind speaker comparison where there was subs. So I can't remember if that one was or not. You remember the other one, Jonathan? They just used one speaker instead of stereo pairs.
Yeah.
Yep. We've done. DL Beck used to host these kind of events regularly. We'd go down there in Des Moines area, Iowa, and that was always a lot of fun. Having a reunion for that matter this weekend. A few of us are going back up there to say hi to him again and rekindle some of that old discussion. That'll be fun. So, at any rate, what I've come to the conclusion on is that some of that same uniqueness that people, what they like, what they enjoy, seems to apply to video as well. Maybe not to the same degree, but maybe. And I think this conversation tonight will kind of open that up and we'll see where we land. I don't think our preferences were universal. There may be similarities, but I don't think they were universal. We'll see. And so we had 6 projectors, which is, it went surprisingly well for how many projectors we had. In order of prices, we had the Epson 5040 UB. That's been like $1,000 projector for probably 6 years, refurbed. When it stopped being new. It's perfectly fine. SDR, actually, I'd even say good. At HDR, it's
Wait. You
usable.
can't. Sorry to interrupt you, but you can't still buy it refurb now, can you?
I don't know. I haven't looked, but for a long time you
I would have
could.
done that.
Okay, you can look it
I'll
up.
see you guys later. I got a projector to
All right.
buy.
If anybody has a cheap projector that they want to sell Sheldon, preferably a used or refurbished 5040,
50/50, he thinks, if he had his druthers.
Homie.
he's in the market.
Yeah, they don't mess up as much. I
So
mean, look how dim that 5040 is. You can barely see light coming out of it.
the new bulb time. The 5040 was before HDR had really cemented, and it has terrible HDR performance, so it pretty much would rule itself out on any HDR clips. So you have to, if you're going to get that one, you have to use SDR, but it throws a nice picture for $1,000. Then we had next the LS9000, the Valerian. I think the Valerian's 3,000. Is that right, John?
Yeah,
2300.
it's the Pro 2, so it's the $3,000 model. It's not the Max.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lot of Max comments in the thread right now, but this one was a Pro 2.
Very popular forum projector right now. Probably one of the biggest threads on the entire projector side as that Valerian thread. Then we had the LS9000, which is a brand new model from Epson. Nobody in our group had seen it yet, so we wanted to see what it did. Then we had my 3-year-old LS12000, which had about 1,100 hours on it, I think. And then we had my NZ500, which has about 3 or 4 months of use on it, maybe 100 hours. And then we had my QL3000, which is kind of an outlier, totally different type tier, both good and bad. And that one is like $15,000.
We didn't really spend much time on the QL3000 though.
So that was the gamut. Quite a few different projectors covering a decade or more of time, as far as release dates, and just kind of seeing like how do they hold up? How do they do? So we watched a combination of clips, mostly selected by Carp, only because we get these hairspring ideas and just jump on them too fast. We probably, if we cemented it and took the time to really get the clips and stuff organized, we might have had more efficiency there. But a lot of the clips are selected by Carp. They were great clips, no fault there. We'll talk through the clips we chose and even why we chose or what we were looking for in the clips. We played them out of my Oppo player. Thank you, Doug, for giving that to me, by the way. He couldn't get it to work and said he was going to throw it away, and he let me try it, and it's been working without doing anything. So that was nice for me.
Free Oppo.
Did you even tell him that?
I told him. It's like, well, I don't know. I mean, he said he could either get video or sound, but not both, and it would only do one or the other. And I haven't had that happen the whole time I've had it. It just works. So
I don't know. Maybe that's what happened to the sound last night.
that could
That
be
is
true.
true.
Actually,
That's right.
we did have sound cut out at some point. We didn't know why. So maybe.
I kind of like no sound because that would have driven us nuts hearing
It
the same
would've.
clips over and over.
It would have.
So we played these clips. They were any number of length of long, but most of them were like a minute or two, and we'd cut them short, especially towards the end of the night as we were kind of pushing through these things, to about 30 seconds a piece or maybe a minute a piece. The first round, we went through all 6 projectors. We played the clips with each projector solo on the screen at about 116 inches. That's what my 16 by 9 inch size is. And then the second round, we didn't compare everything A/B, but we compared some of the ones we thought were most interesting A/B. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as well, where we had one projector on the left side and one projector on the right side. This was not like calibrated image per se, like measured image. It was just kind of like forum.
There's no per
preferences.
se. There was no calibrated image, and there was no. It was an impromptu comparison.
Sure.
But we took that into account, I think, pretty well for when we were taking observations.
Sure. So we checked up before we ever started. We lined up the pixel alignment grids, made sure they were all perfect on all of them as
By
best
we,
you could
he
do.
means Jonathan.
What's that?
By we, you mean Jonathan.
Oh, yeah. Well, you guys were watching and helping a little bit, so that's fine. So then all the pixel alignments were done on all the projectors. The Valerian was not able to be on the back row. Let me see if I can point this over there a little bit. So that's the row where we put the projectors, and they were just on a makeshift shelf back there, and then 2 of them are hung on the ceiling. So what we were doing, we couldn't put the Valerian back there; it wouldn't throw right. So we put the Valerian on this little area right between my seat rows, and it was on a tripod. We played everything at 100% laser. Pixel alignment was good. We used the forum's recommended settings on everything, including like the LS9000, LS12000, the 5040 UB. I'll just recount the settings briefly from memory. The 5040 UB was in natural mode, 100% laser. The Valerian, John, I'll let you speak to the Valerian
You mean
settings.
not laser, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
laser was 10. All the HDR was in HDR theater mode. The basic settings were all taken from home theater hookup. The EBL, because people are going to ask, was set at high most of the time, although we did go back on certain clips to change EBL high and low to see if there was impact for clipping. And then the only deviation from most of the settings was my adjustments in the motion, where I've kind of hit the middle ground between my wife, who's very sensitive to motion issues, and me, who I'm with the other guys except for Sheldon, and wanting to have a lot of interpolation. So it's kind of the middle ground. But anyway, other than that, it's pretty standard setup.
So the LS9000 and LS12000 were set up the same, basically using my Archaea settings off the forum. You can find them there. It's a gamma of -1. It's using dynamic mode, so you have the full fade to black and the best laser dimming. It's got a GM offset of 6, I think it is. Changing the image sharpness settings to a preset of 3 with a super resolution setting of 7. Those are the majority of those settings for both. We did that both on the LS9000, LS12000, since it's like a shared config or same type of menu system. And then for the JVC, 100% laser, it was filmmaker mode, I think. And then we had laser dimming on low, right? Wasn't the laser dimming speed on low?
You tried both, low and high.
And then we had auto normal for the majority of the time, but we also tried auto wide briefly.
And I think it's important to mention that for the majority of these, we tried to look past color, because color can be fixed in a lot of applications and situations by calibration. So color we looked past. It was more of, is the color changing in the abundance of color during different scenes, I think is what we were looking at, not whether or not it was accurate, because that's going to come down to calibration. I did try and note any type of compression or weird things that were going on, but just take that for what you will when people are going to be, oh, well, color would look better this way or that way. We tried to not take that into account.
Oh, a couple things. Yeah, that's all true. A couple more things. On the Epsons, the 9000 and 12000, we put the HDR slider at 5 on both of those. And the color was knocked down to 47 from the default of 50, so taking 3 off the top. And then for the JVC, the color was ramped up 4, just in my own personal use, since those are all my projectors, except for the LS9000 that was alone. For those two projectors, I just like it that way. That's kind of how I can balance the colors a little bit. The JVC needs more of a boost to get to the same color saturation, and still not quite there. And the Epson needs more of a cut to get to the same color saturation, of just like personal preference. The QL3000 was set to 100% laser. It was in its cinema mode, mostly defaults. I think from 50 brightness, it was knocked down to 49, and contrast was knocked down to 49 because the Spears and Munsell disc says that's where it needs to be based on their calibration images. And otherwise, mostly default on that one. I think image preset 2 as far as sharpening. So really actually quite good pixel alignment on all these units. There wasn't really a bad unit in the whole mix. At first, I thought the LS9000 might have had a pixel alignment problem, but it was actually just a focus problem because it got changed a little bit. We got that set in and looked real sharp on the LS9000 as well in the pixel alignment grid. Good start. It was actually very smooth considering 6 projectors ad hoc setup like that so fast. I mean, we went through this really remarkably quick for how many different things we sampled.
I mean, we were still there for
I got home at 12:30.
So,
I mean, but to have like all these projectors come over and like start from scratch at what, like, I mean, what time did you get here?
Technical difficulties. The
I got
one
there like
technical issue we
6:30.
had was the 5040 didn't like a 4K input.
Yeah.
So we changed it to 1080p. The switch we were using, which was an AV Pro MX88X, allowed us to downscale. So it did downscaling for the 5040, which was fine. Resolution, we weren't really concerned about. It still looked really sharp. That was really the only hiccup we ran into, aside from losing sound, but I'd take losing sound as a bonus.
Yeah. Jonathan, you did, I probably missed it. You said you did put the LS12000 on the Dave Harper settings.
Dave Harper's got the baseline settings for that, but then it was custom to my.
So it's on dynamic and all,
Uh-huh.
all that.
Yep. Both LS9000 and LS12000 like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the background on it. The one other little note is the NZ500 cannot do a full 16:9 on my screen. It actually over zooms a little bit because of where it has to be placed in my room. In order to fit on my 116-inch screen, it'd have to be directly over the rear row of chairs, and nobody wants that. Like, you wouldn't be able to sit down or get up or anything without hitting your head. So it's back a little bit, and it cannot do a 16:9. Like, it's just a little bit over the top and the bottom. So it was a little bit bigger image than the others, but didn't really hurt its position, I don't think. I mean, it didn't do it any ill favors, I don't believe. It's how I use it in my room. There's not really another way to do it unless I did some sort of Mad VR or unique lens or something with it. So I'll pull up the clips now. We can kind of just talk through them. What we would like to do is kind of point out strengths, perhaps weaknesses, talk through what we thought worked really well and where something maybe wasn't quite as well, and then list a favorite for each clip from each person. And this will be like independent thought. I mean, everyone has it's free to put whatever they thought it really was, and with no fault from the rest of us.
Okay.
So share screen. Oh, I guess it's already shared. So we just have to pick it, right?
I'll do it. Hold on.
Here, I'm going to pull it back because it was not, maybe it had to be added to stage or something.
Not design. How do I get, oh, you got it.
There it is.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll just talk through these clips real quick. Actually, Sheldon's drive that he brought over with these clips on it just died today. So we're not 100% sure we caught everything. If we think of something later on, we'll add it live. But this is the ones we could remember off the top of our heads.
I think this is it.
The gravity intro, that's like where it's making the white text in the black background, and the kind of the sound is ramping up. It's testing black 4 and laser dimming. Most of these were in HDR, but not all. This one was not HDR. It was SDR.
And there wasn't any rhyme or reason for ones that weren't in HDR. It was just what was readily available for this quick session.
That's right. Baby Driver intro was in HDR. It tests motion and panning and so forth, because the main character is kind of walking through the streets, and you can look at signs and look at text that's written on the wall, and you can just kind of see how the motion interpolation does, if it's using it. Old has a beach panning scene where the camera drops in the middle of a bunch of people and the camera spins round and round, so you can just kind of watch panning there. Guardians of the Galaxy, the monster fight I think it's at the beginning of the movie where they're introducing the credits and so forth. It just tests real colorful, bright HDR. The John Wick scene where they're fighting around that monument in Europe that's well known. It tests black level, just how realistic a night scene looks and motion. X-Men, Dark Phoenix, Alien in the Woods. It's when they're eating supper, the dog starts barking, and the lady walks out and encounters the aliens in the woods. It's very much black level night content, like how well can you see what's actually going on in the scene. Godzilla versus Kong. Ryan, help me out here. It's like the mech fight or something in that one. I'm not really sure.
Godzilla, it's the opening to that fight where Godzilla encounters Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla breaks out of the mountain and they fight each other, or at least the start of that fight.
HDR, brightness, detail. Was there anything else that you were looking for in that clip, Ryan, do you think?
Not really.
Okay, The Revenant, which was the campfire scene at the end, where that actor, what's his name? Tom
Hardy.
Hardy. Tom Hardy sitting around eating food and discussing with the other young man. It's just a night scene. Interesting because there's a bright fire, like skin tones, black floor. Avatar 2, when the ships land, there's like a big explosion, big fireball, just interesting contrast. You can see the thrusters coming out as far as white content on a black background, star fields, all that kind of thing. Really probably interesting primarily. Quiet Place, Red Light Emergency, that's black floor and really shadow detail. Like, can you see the bricks in the wall behind the characters, that kind of thing. Sicario, Meeting at the Car. It's just a night scene where the actors are all talking around a car and how well the night scene looks. Ad Astra, Moon Rovers, that's when they're kind of, the three of them are racing across the moon's surface. That's testing interesting contrast and HDR brightness. 1917, Waking Up. We didn't start at the bottom of the staircase. That's real dark. That's hard to see. We started it when he got to the top of the staircase and he's looking out the window, and then he's kind of running along the path, and there's people shooting at him, and the lights are fading on and off, and you can see like how much black detail can you see? How's the interesting contrast look? What's the detail level? Gladriel versus the Orc on the high tower. Contrast, highlight, sharpness. And Lucy. We don't really know what the scene's called, but there's kind of a scene where they're in a car. It's got a close-up of Lucy's face. You can see her skin, pores, that kind of thing. There's color fibers stretched all over the place, and we were looking for sharpness and color brightness in that scene. So what we were thinking here is we would probably just set it up where for each of these things, as we talk through it and kind of talk about highlights or shortcomings, we would just put everyone's favorite projector from that scene as kind of a way to showing what each individual one of us thought was best for that particular thing. And again, no pressure. Everyone has their own opinions, and feel free to counter anyone you want as far as what you think. Let's get our pretty little faces back up on here, because it feels like we're just talking to a spreadsheet right now. Maybe we do it this way. Okay. So Ryan and the other gentleman on the call here, can you guys kind of half watch chats as well? So if we have any questions that are applicable to what we're talking about, we can speak about it. Get that about as big as I can get it on the screen there.
Jonathan, sorry, I probably wasn't paying attention. A comment says I don't like Filmmaker on the JVC. We weren't on Filmmaker mode, right?
Let me fire it up and I'll see. I think we might have been.
Oh, I don't like Filmmaker mode either on the JVC.
It's my favorite. If we weren't, it's my favorite. I'll check in just a second because it hasn't been messed with.
Maybe it's not the Velvet. Why you like it better over here?
What mode do you like? It might be in
called, but it's not Filmmaker.
Is Filmmaker in opposition to HDR Adapt 1 or whatever? It might have been in HDR Adapt 1.
I don't think you were in Filmmaker.
I don't think you were either.
I think I would have noticed that and like protested vehemently.
Why do you like Filmmaker? It's usually even with the RS2100, it was one of my favorite modes.
I don't like it.
It's not my favorite.
It looks more dull or something. I don't know.
Oh, so it doesn't. It's just in natural because it's SDR right now. So I need to have I'll have to have something HDR to try. Here, I'll fire something up. We'll see what it looks like, and then we'll talk about this. Let's talk about it. I'll fire this up in the meantime. So for gravity intro, did you guys notice big differences there, or what did you think? Let's talk.
You could definitely see a projector that had laser dimming, for
Mhm.
sure. I can't say that I really had a favorite. Did you guys?
What I was hoping to see on that, and it didn't really prove to be that bad on any of them. The 5040 showed the bulb dynamic iris pumping. What I
Yeah.
wanted to see was how they would transition out of the text, the full fade to black, if that engaged, all that kind of stuff. And you did see differences there. Like there were clear differences. The laser dimming algorithms all behaved pretty well on that. There was nothing that was super dim. Like sometimes with white text on a black background, laser dimming algorithms misbehave and the text gets real faint. That didn't happen on any of these units. But the way it transitioned between the white wording and the black background and back did differ between them, and you could see the native black contrast floor difference. I don't know that anything really stood out to me as being like an absolute favorite on that one.
Me either.
No. 5040 was my least favorite because of the dynamic aperture or iris or whatever.
John, did you have any thoughts on that one as far as any preferences or leanings, or did it not matter that much for that clip?
I'd say probably the 9000 was my least favorite.
I agree with that.
Just because there's no dynamic film, or I'm sorry, no like EBL or whatever brand name you want to call it, laser dimming going on. But yeah, as far as favorite, I don't know. Everything else did pretty well.
Okay. So you actually liked the laser dimming and the up and the down and the up and the down?
Well, no. I mean, if you have a choice, right, then you go without any dimming if you have a strong native contrast. But with the different units, the ones that didn't have anything to compensate for the native contrast it stood out as being least favorable.
Okay.
And I say that because the text you had when the movie name was up and the text was bright, for example, the Valerian, it came out of its EBL mode in order to hit that highlight. And then as that text went away, then it went back into the EBL mode. So
yeah, the thing I don't like though is that you're seeing that ramp and that up and the down and the up and the down. And I feel like if you stay in it, I'm kind of going back to not having a favorite. If you stay in it, it's not as distracting.
I can understand that.
I didn't notice any up and down.
Jonathan left.
Jonathan's gone.
I want to know.
Yeah, that scene was so quick. I don't know. I don't remember the comparisons with that scene very well, to be honest. But
it was really just which projectors had full fade to black and which ones didn't.
Yeah.
So we'll skip that one because it didn't seem like we have a real strong vote on that one. What about the Baby Driver intro that was testing panning motion and text legibility and stuff? What do you guys think on that one?
I thought the Epsons did really well on the panning text from a motion perspective. Obviously, the JVC was not the best on that. And then
to be fair, though, the JVC doesn't have motion interpolation.
Sure. That might be a reason why you don't choose a JVC.
Potentially.
So, John, what do you want to be marked down as? Did you like the LS9000, LS12000, the 5040, or the QL3000?
Really, the 12,000 and the 3,000 from a motion perspective, I thought were very comparable. I couldn't pick one or the other. And as far as motion aggressiveness, they were the highest.
So, in my ownership of both those things, I do think there's differences. I wonder, and then maybe another way we'd see differently, or it may also be that it just needs more time or more direct comparison to see the difference there. that in my estimation, and Sheldon, you said that you thought a little bit differently on this, but in my estimation, the LS12000 is a little bit smoother than the QL3000 implementation. The QL3000 is a little bit more jerky, especially if you're comparing them side by side. You can kind of see that difference. And I expected that someone that didn't like frame interpolation would like the QL3000 better because it's like a little bit more jerky, a little bit more. If there's a scale between smooth and 24 frames per second jerk, the QL3000 seems a little bit more towards the jerky side, but not native. So it's interesting to me from my perception on that you thought that those two look the same. I thought the LS12000 and LS9000 seemed very similar, but I felt a little difference between the QL3000 and LS12000. Now, that being said, I've had more time with those than you guys have, so I'm not going to fault you for that. Just interesting to me. So, Moltar, did you have a preference on that Baby Driver intro as far as the one you thought won?
LS12000.
Sheldon, you liked the Valerian motion you had mentioned earlier. Is that still your favorite?
Yeah, this is the one scene where I probably would pick the Valerian. So remember that I said I'm saying good things right now about the Valerian, but later when it may not be quite as good. Yeah, so that whatever that custom setting, John, that you have on there is fantastic, because what it did for my eyes, I know everybody sees differently, but for me, it took away a lot of the judder of the 24 hertz frame stuff, but had zero soap opera effect. And I've never like seen that combination before. I would actually use that if, mine doesn't have it anyway, and I've never used any kind of smoothing, but I would use that. So.
Uh-oh, we lost John. I was just going to ask him a question too.
No, I'm still here.
Okay, so was there
Camera froze up
on that one, John? Was it a what were the two modes, the sliding scales that you could change? What were the two details that you were able to change with that?
Judder's one, and what's the other one, Ryan? We were talking about, and I can't remember it.
Blur.
No opinion. Blur. Thank you. Yeah. So Judder I had set at 3, and then Blur is set at 5.
Okay. For me on that one, I'm just a big fan of the LS12000 motion. It's going to be that one. And like I say, I think the LS9000 motion was pretty much identical to my eye. So either of those would be fine. I like the visuals on the LS12000 better than the LS9000. So anytime that they're going to be similar, I'm going to go with the LS12000 just from like preference of contrast, preference of brightness, those types of things. Okay. So does this stay the same on the beach panning from Old? In the movie Old, the camera drops in between the members of this party that are on a beach, and it's like in the center, and the people are all standing in a circle talking to each other about what to do next. And the camera's just panning around them, like 24 frames per second speed panning. And it's super jerky if there's no frame interpolation. Like people's heads are doing this as it's going across. It's so bad that when I had the JVC RS2100, I didn't like using frame interpolation. And I was watching that movie with my wife on that movie, and she like said, stop. What is wrong with your projector on that scene? And so like that stuck out in my mind as something to check panning with. And it truly is. It doesn't matter. Even the Epsons at 24 frames per second are just bad on that with no frame interpolation. But the frame interpolation
It's a torture test for sure.
Does do things. It does help it. So are we in the same positions on the feedback from those, do you think, or did anything change?
That scene was like the biggest torture test of all time that I've ever seen. It was like people were having seizures.
The doctor's head at the end when it was like, yeah, I mean, it was like this much space on the side of his head that's repeating.
Yeah, but
did you still think Valerian was that? Because Valerian was just like lesser motion control. Did it still do the same? Was it still the top candidate in your mind on that one?
Well, if you're doing just a pure like panning, like what was happening there, you're not going to get as much of the soap opera effect. So I would take like the smoothing of all time just for that little part, and then like turn it back off. So yeah,
turn it back off immediately.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna assume LS12000, or did you like QL3000 better? Or what'd you like there? Like, I'm not gonna tell you which one you like with Epsons, because you can also, if it goes beyond that, Like if you like something else from there, I guess you could pick like
Any of the Epsons were, I thought, were pretty similar.
maybe that's how I'll answer this one. Okay. Guardians of the Galaxy. That's the intro where they're fighting that tentacled monster like a big squid. What'd you like here?
I didn't have any takeaways on this one. Because the color I tried to look past, so I didn't really have a favorite, I guess.
I know which one I would chose in a heartbeat. Like from the very second that raccoon showed up at the beginning of the screen, and it was so much brighter. And then like the lettering with the version 2.0 from Guardians of the Galaxy, and just the starburst or the fireworks going off the background, the QL3000, that's its heyday. In fact, I think I said aloud like this, I want to watch this movie on the QL3000 because it just looks so much brighter than the other ones on that clip to me.
Yeah, I agree that the 3000, I thought shined. I'm going to call it a little bit better there.
No preference, Sheldon or Ryan?
No, I agree with that. I couldn't really remember, but then when you guys were saying that, so maybe you talked me into it. But
I like the brightness, but I really wasn't considering the QL3000 as part of this, really, because it was so much more expensive than everything else.
Okay. So you just no preference for you?
I'll say no preference. Preference was the QL, but it was so much more expensive. I don't know that it was really fair.
I don't think you have to exclude it because I don't think it's going to win all the categories. So it's not like it'll just be
okay. Then QL.
You know what I mean? Like I just don't. It's not going to win the dark floor categories. So I'd say let it win where it wins and let it fall where it falls. John,
I think after the QL, just to kind of tie in with what Ryan was talking about, after the QL, I actually would probably go Valerian on that, just from being a little bit brighter.
Okay. Good feedback. John Wick, the night scene where they're fighting, the cars are running around that circle monument, they're getting hit by cars, they're shooting each other, there's lots of headlights, lots of motion. What do you think?
that was the biggest scene where my favorite projector was like a bigger gap than any of the others. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly. And for me, it was the JVC on that one. It just looked head and shoulders better than everything else.
Ryan?
JVC for sure on that one, but I think the LS12000 was closer than I thought it was going to be.
I wish we would have turned off smoothing for that, because that might have affected my perception of it.
John, do you have any preference on that one?
I agree with the JVC, but I also agree that the LS12000 was pretty close. It seemed like it was a little bit different time of day, not quite as dark.
That's an interesting standpoint. Elaborate on that, and I agree.
I mean, it wasn't crazy like we had seen in some of the other comparisons and different clips, but it was just a little bit brighter. Like the lights, maybe the ambient lighting was just a little bit higher with the LS12000 that when compared directly to the JVC.
But couldn't you say that was just because the LS12000 was brighter than the NZ500? Because it technically is.
Sure.
I noticed it more in that context of what John's talking about with the QL3000. I think we even commented like this is a different time of day on several clips, in the way that it presents.
But that its tone mapping's different.
Yes, very much.
Dramatically so with I don't know what it's doing, but it's doing something dramatically different.
Agreed.
The main difference for me on the LS12000 versus the NZ was just the black floor. The black floor on the NZ500 is significantly better. Mm-hmm. In that scene.
You're talking like 5,000 to 1 native on the LS12000 versus 40,000 to 1, 20,000 to 1, whatever my room allows for with the limitation of the room.
It's easily visible, even with both of the projectors on at the same time. And if you turn the LS12000 off, the JVC would have been better, even still, because it's not getting washed out by the LS12000.
So I 100% agree with you guys on this one. The NZ500, to me, this was the clip and the entire thing that made the NZ500 shine the most. Like I thought, Well, and maybe the next one too, as I look at it. But the NZ500 really did a number on that clip. It looked great. It's like a reference clip. All right, X-Men Dark Phoenix, Alien the Woods. There's some things to talk about, good and bad here, I think. Ryan, you want to kick us off?
This one, I was shocked at how well the Valerian did on this particular scene. The Valerian's tone mapping's pretty good. I mean, it does a good job. I struggle with it because of RBE. So I can't do it. But for the price point, the Valerian's a good project. And I think it did a great job on this scene. The winner for me on this was the JVC. No question. However, just like in the John Wick scene, the LS12000 did much better than I thought it was going to. And yes, it wasn't as dark. Like you could say that it had a haze over it. If it wasn't right next to the JVC, I don't know that I would have cared. But in its presentation, aside from the haze, I couldn't discern any differences between it and the JVC. I mean, I wasn't up there pixel peeping, but from a general seated position, they both looked really good. JVC definitely won because of its black floor, but the LS12000, it surprised me again. But the one that struggled the most,
Valerian versus LS12000. You mismentioned like two.
I was surprised. Yeah, I was surprised at how well the Valerian did, because you and I mentioned when we were wrapping up this get together that they fixed a lot of things with the Valerian. It wasn't nearly as bad. It wasn't even bad. It wasn't bad. But it didn't have the issues that it had when we did this several months ago at my house. My main issue with
2024, really? Yeah. Wasn't it?
I think so. My main issue with it then and now continues to be the RBE. But I think in that scene, I still feel like the LS12000 did it better than the Valerian did. Personally,
I'm flipped the other way. I like the Valerian a little bit better with the EBL. The to the rainbow effect conversation, we did just something I forgot to mention. We did do a majority of the viewing in Warm 2, which has a little different laser firing profile to try to help with some of the RBE issues between John and Ryan. But then there are some color changes that have come with that. And then, so part of the review, we were looking at Warm 2, and then kind of the last half of the comparison, specifically between like the LS12000 and the JVC, we flipped over to Warm 1 just to have a little more accurate color.
The Valerian to me in that scene just looked flat. It didn't have the depth. I feel like the black floor, the LS12000's black floor was better than the Valerian's.
I agree with that.
So Sheldon, John, Valerian or NZ500, what was your preference in that one? And again, there's no fault. If you like the Valerian better, that's totally fine.
NZ500 by quite a bit.
Let me get John's answer. I don't know if I heard his.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'd say Pro2, Valerian.
Okay. Okay, Sheldon?
So I know like we're not supposed to talk about color, but it definitely affected me with the Valerian. On Warm 1 and Warm 2, like skin tones especially, and this scene was the worst, where it's like the female, I can't remember the actress's name, but she looked like the scary part of the scene. Like she looked like some kind of undead ghoul, like greenish yellow face. It was bad. So I don't know. Now maybe that could be calibrated. I don't know, but it was hard for me to get past that. I definitely saw the flatness too. I don't know. It's hard to describe the like, how can an image look flat? They're all flat. That sounds like something dumb to say, but yeah, it did look like that to me. And I did think the Epson had the 12,000 had a better black floor. The Valerian completely wiped the floor with the 9,000. That was the first like head-to-head comparison we did. I don't know
So
if
the
I'm jumping ahead. but-
9,000, I don't think you are, because that we're talking about all the projectors. The 9,000, I expected more from it, maybe misguidedly. Its native contrast is not good. I mean, I think its native contrast is roughly the same as the Valerian. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close.
But it doesn't have the sophisticated dimming algorithms and other things that the Valerian has. It struggled, and it was pretty egregious on that scene.
So we had, and I agree with you 100%, Ryan. We had dynamic contrast on, and we had under the high speed, and it really didn't feel like it was doing that. Like
No,
it was not impressive on this scene at all.
no.
It was bad.
The spotlight with the dog, where the light's hitting it, just you lost. Yeah, you lost a good part of that detail. Where even if you put it right next to the LS12000, you got all of that back. You didn't even need to jump all the way to the JVC. It struggled quite a bit on this scene.
Yeah, I agree 100%. When we watched this scene, I particularly thought like I wouldn't even want to own the LS9000. Frankly, it was not good for that scene. Now, I don't know if that'll be improved in the future or not, but the native contrast is like 1800 to 1 on the LS9000, and if it doesn't do any trickery with that, then it's not really acceptable in my opinion for these kind of dark scenes. So Sheldon, on that, were you NZ500 or what did you like on that dark wood scene?
Oh, I thought I already said, yeah, NZ500. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm there too. Where my surprise came in was I going into this kind of half expected, because you read good things about the LS9000 on the forums. I kind of expected the LS9000 to just be like a slightly dimmer version of the LS12000, but I found it wasn't really. I thought they were two different tiers, and in my opinion, absolutely worth the extra money to save up for the LS12000.
Oh yeah,
my opinion.
And the LS9000 also does not come with a mount. The LS12000 still does, and that can be, if you don't have a mount, can be a significant savings there as well. So it may not be as more expensive as you may think it is if you don't have a mount.
Okay, Godzilla versus Kong. Who wants to kick this one off? This was another one I didn't have terribly strong opinions on, sort of like maybe the first clip. What do you guys think?
This was another one where I felt like the Valerian felt flat. And it may have been a settings thing. I don't know. I tried to look past the RBE, so I'm not going to I saw the RBE on all of them. It was not pleasant for me to watch because of it. So I looked past that. I'm not including that in this part. It felt flat, and I feel like it felt flat because it was lacking color, like all color. So if you looked at the beam from Mechagodzilla, it didn't have the same color volume as all of it. It was way more white. But this happened not just in that pink red, it happened on skin tones, it happened on Avatar with the space stuff, with the blue, with the everything. So I don't know if it was calibration or if it was something that was going on with tone mapping or if it was a setting. But I feel like that's why I felt it was flat, was because it had far less color across the board than the others. And we thought initially that the Epsons and stuff were pushing red, but then we put the JVC on and it was almost identical to what the Epsons were doing. And they both may have been pushing red, but we all agreed that they looked far more natural. And I feel like they looked more natural because there was just a lack of color on the Valerian, at least for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially since I've been watching it for the last 4 months since I've had it. The color, especially compared to all the other projectors, the volume, as you talked about, didn't seem to be quite the same. And I do think that was part of the perception that it was flat. As far as for settings in there, that is out of the box color settings. I have not touched any of that. So it is what it is when it came out of the factory there. Also on that subject, just to comment this, I know this will be asked. This is running the latest firmware that I have available, which is the 430 firmware. So anybody that wonders that.
Thanks. So where did you land on that, Ryan? What was your favorite?
I really think anything but the Valerian was my favorite. I didn't have an issue with any of the other ones. I know you commented that what's his name, that character looked like he blended into the background. I don't remember his name. But when we went back, I didn't see that. So I don't think I had a favorite. I don't remember the QL3000 on that one. I historically value brightness, so maybe that one, but I don't remember what it was. So I'll just say any of them but the Valerian, because that is a very colorful scene, and it felt like it was missing all of the color. I know I said I would look past color, but it was missing all color. I felt like it was very flat.
I'm not sure how to write like no, not Valerian.
Just
if you want
to pick one, LS12000. No, yeah, LS12000, because I don't remember the QL3000. I don't remember what that looked like on that scene.
John, where'd you land?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to Ryan on the LS12000. I will say though, when we were watching the 3000, so when the robot comes out of the mountain, I thought the LS12000 looked better, had a little more detail in the robot coming out. But when the robot shot the red laser or whatever the heck it is coming out of its mouth, that QL3000, that the red had a lot. So I don't know which one you. I think overall probably if I had to pick one, I would say the 12,000, just because it wasn't as bad. I mean, it wasn't too far off of the red pop, but it had a little more black.
I think on that one, I'm going with QL3000 because I like that extra brightness on the laser.
But if you didn't pick the QL, what would you pick?
It would be LS12000 because the motion on that, I noticed like the motion details I liked on the Epson better and stuff too in that particular scene. But I mean, I don't have any problem putting the QL3000 in the mix because it's really readily apparent here that, you know, it has its strengths and its weaknesses. So I'm going to put it where its strength is. That's to me there. Sheldon?
I don't have a huge memory of that comparison, other than the fact that I was surprised on the 3000 at the end when it showed the guy from The Wire and John Wick, that you could see the detail in his black clothing, which I didn't expect to happen. So just for that, I'm going to say 3000. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about. And Ryan talked about it a little bit in his little overview as well. There was at the very end of that tail scene, there was the guy that plays the assistant for the hotel in John Wick. What's his name? He's a good actor. Black guy. He's wearing a black suit. It's a dark scene. On some of the other projectors, including the Valerian, if I remember correctly, certainly the LS9000, like because he's a black guy in a black scene, he just kind of almost disappears in the scene. Like you can barely make out that he's even there. But the LS12000, the QL3000, their tone mapping elevated that out of the scene, so you could see that guy.
Now, if it was just that little, piece, it's the JVC for me.
No question,
easily.
No
but
question.
Taking everything else into account, and I was sitting there watching the scene. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty bright on the 3000, but wait till it shows that one guy, and then he actually looked pretty good. I was like, oh.
Wait till it shows this one frame where this particular projector shines.
Yep.
So by the way, I'm going to turn off my projector. It's been running all this time. JVC was in Frame Adapt HDR1 instead of filmmaker mode.
Good.
But watching a movie the entire time in the background, has that been on? Is it on screen? Okay,
no.
Good. I was going to say, we're a copyright violation out of the whole thing with something going on. All right, let's turn that off. Turn this off. Okay. So, Revenant, the campfire scene. Tom Hardy and the other guy are around a campfire eating a big piece of turkey meat or something, like a big hunk of meat, just talking. It's got the red hues, the fire in the background. It's got the sky, the black sky. Where are you at, Ryan?
Toss up between LS12000 and NZ500. They presented differently. I'd be happy with either.
So when you say they presented differently, in my mind, that was a little bit of a color scheme.
Were different. So I'm trying to look past that.
The LS12000 had more of a reddish
yes
to the scene, and the NZ700 or NZ500 did not quite have as much red in it.
Yeah, but APL wise, they looked very similar until you got to the end where it was darker than the JVC. I'd be happy with either of those two. Again, I'm kind of looking past the QL because it was more expensive.
You got to pick. Give me something.
LS12000 or NZ500. I can't choose. They were both good.
You were coming back to you. Got to pick. All right.
But you said at the very end of the scene you like the NZ500 more.
Well, I said you could tell it apart, but I'm also considering, like, for the money, with what I got out of the LS12000, I take the LS12000. Fine.
I don't think you have to apologize.
We're doing this by the money? Then
no, you can do it however you want. I mean, I like them both. And if I had to choose one, that's a choosing factor. So I would choose the LS12000 in that situation.
The thing that I'll point out in regards to your color differences, I like the JVC NZ500 better than the LS12000. Me personally speaking, that, and that's a swing because I like the LS12000 better than the JVC RS2100. That's after 3 years of ownership between the LS12000 and the RS2100, and 3 or 4 months the NZ500 versus LS12000. That said, I cannot get the color saturation on the NZ500 that I can get on the LS12000. Like I mentioned earlier, the LS12000s are swept down 3 ticks to get rid of some color, and the JVC is bumped up 4 ticks to add some color, and still you're noting there's more color on the Epson. And that's just like kind of across the board. Like if you're watching any kind of demos on YouTube, like those just color saturation videos, the Epson has more color saturation, period. It has a deeper red, it has more color saturation. So I don't think you have to apologize to say it could just be a calibration issue, because I think it's more than that. It's just kind of a way that they portray those colors to some degree. I personally would say I like the NZ500 better on that scene just because the black floor is better. And I don't think that the little bit of difference between the color saturation in that particular scene harms it at all. It looks really natural. It has the best black floor. Like it's, in my opinion, the NZ500 won that scene. So Sheldon?
Well, I was just going to jump in on your comparison there. So if you're watching like animated stuff, like you're seeing at the end of the night, I think that saturation the settings that you have for color would be preferred by a lot of people, most people maybe. But then when you watch actual human faces, there's more like, oh, that person has a slight sunburn or a little too tan or something like that. So it depends on what kind of content you're watching.
Mm-hmm. It's fair. So which projector do you land on for that campfire scene?
NZ500, but the LS12000 did a really, really good job. I was impressed with it. That was the one, for me, the biggest, like, whoa, like Valerian comparison to the NZ500. It was like, then I took a picture of it, and it looks pretty close to what it looked like in person. Like, just massive difference in black floor and
that's you saying they were different, not that they were close, to be clear.
Yeah, way, way, way different. Like way, way better on the JVC.
All right, John, where are you at?
Yeah, so in your room, meaning as dark as it is, I would probably go JVC. If it was in my room that I'm not as well light controlled, I might want a little more light. So I'd probably go 12,000. To Sheldon's comments, so I agree 100%. That scene was a kind of an eye opener, comparing the JVC to the Valerian, and there's enough light in that image that the EBL is not kicking on at all. So you're kind of stuck at 1800-1 contrast ratio on the Valerian.
Oh,
And-
okay, yeah, that'll do it then, right? I didn't know it
And
wasn't
so-
kicking on.
Yeah, it's pushing the light output up high enough to where it's not really engaging to help drop that black floor. So
That makes sense.
yeah.
Okay, so on the next one, Avatar 2 Ship's Landing. I haven't started one. I'm going to start this one. QL3000 for me. The brightness won me over. The sharpness won me over. I thought it looked the best. It wasn't the blackest for the Starfield, but it was the brightest, and the black was good enough that it was quite enjoyable to me. That's talking about the ship thrusters coming down. That's talking about the giant explosion on the planet. That's talking about the detail and the steel structure between the ships on the spanning sections, that kind of thing. There were pretty much all the projectors except for the LS9000, and we didn't do the 5040 on this one, or most of the HDR clips. All of them did well in that scene, frankly. LS9000, not so much. What do you guys think? John, you want to start? Or secondary there? Did we lose John? I think we lost him.
John.
John's gone.
All right. What about you, Ryan?
Omitting the QL3000.
I don't think you should do that.
I am going to, because it is
You can do whatever you want.
over double the price of the others. JVC won this one for me.
Okay.
Because of the Starfield. The Starfield, we all commented on it. I mean, it was way better than the others.
Mm-hmm.
It did the best in this one.
Sheldon.
Yeah, for me it was JVC for that, but then also the first part of the scene when it was them flying around, I thought just the contrast looked better because the blacks were blacker. Yeah, I mean the 3000 was impressive for sure with how bright it got, but it was, the blacks were kind of washed out.
I'm glad that we are not all striking the same preferences. It's all the more real. John, what was your preference on this Avatar 2 clip?
So I kind of agree with Ryan that there's so much bright stuff in that scene that the QL really shined, specifically with the thrusters and the fire coming across the planet at the end. Taking that one out, I actually like the Valerian's brightness in that. I thought the thrust just had a little bit more, and maybe it's clipping. We kind of talked about that during our conversation. Maybe it is clipping in the thrusters, for example. But I just like that extra brightness on those coming down compared to the
I do
LS1000.
remember the Valerian did really well in that scene. Yeah, I just remembered that. Yeah, it was good.
Quiet Place, Red Light Emergency. John, why don't you start us off again?
I mean, that one was easy. I think it's a 500. There was so much dark detail that you could see when she's kind of against the, I don't know, bookshelf or whatever you want to call it, and there's the bricks behind. You can see so much dark detail with the 500 that you just could not see with, I think, any other of the projectors. Some of them were a little better than others, but that one stood out for me.
Ryan?
JVC. It was the only one that I could see the bricks behind her head at the start of the scene.
Yeah.
And it did the best when you have that slow motion pan as you come left with maintaining the detail in her face. Now I'm being nitpicky, right? I think it's really important. Well, I'll address that at the very end. But JVC did the best on that scene. No question.
Sheldon, are you in the same camp?
Mm-hmm.
Anything to add?
Yeah, it definitely was the only one where you could, and somebody mentioned it last night, like you could really see her face the whole time the camera pans in front, or you lose it with all the others.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you guys there. as Ryan called out, the bricks, I think they were only visible with the JVC. The LS9000 was like just a big gray mess. You couldn't see anything.
It was rough.
And a lot of these content, as you see on this clip, are dark scenes. It's just what it is. But that one needed the dark black floor. Scario, night scene, meeting at the car.
I go Epson 12,000 on that one. And you remember how the very end it switched to like her with the background,
Yeah.
and then it was like clearly JVC over everything else. But that was such a small piece of the scene that it's not enough to change my vote, because the rest of it I thought the 12,000 was better.
You basically took the words out of my mouth. I'm on the exact same page on that one. Because the rest of the scene, it shows them walking up to the car. Again, I mean, there's a black guy in the scene. It's a night scene. Some of the other projectors, you couldn't really see his facial features. You couldn't really make out what his face was like. The LS12000 made out the facial features, and yet the highlights and stuff were preserved pretty well. Again, what Sheldon said, the full fade to the black, or the lady at the very last section of that scene looked better on the NZ500, but overall, I still preferred the LS12000 as well.
Yep. LS12000. I didn't think that was going to be the case.
I didn't either.
We saw the LS12000 first, then we saw the JVC later, and I thought the JVC was going to come back, but LS12000, it won.
John, difference or same?
Same. I think just to add a little more resolution, I'll say again, I thought the Valerian did decent on this, but overall, from a complete clip, I'd say the 12,000.
You bring up a good. They were all very close, with the exception of the 9,000 because of its way lower native contrast and not doing what the Valerian was doing with EBL. They were all very close.
I didn't like the 3,000 on that one.
I don't remember the 3,000 on that one. I kind of wasn't paying attention to the 3,000 for a lot of them because I didn't look at it as a contender, but 12,000 still.
Ad Astra, the moon rovers. 3 rovers crossing the space. They got the gold on the helmet that's real deep, rich gold. They got the black sky, the bright white moon surface, the white spacesuits. What'd you like, Sheldon?
Man, I honestly don't remember.
So one thing I took away from this one was the black. This was very intra-scene. The JVC didn't run away with this, even though it was a space scene. The blacks were very, very similar. Like if you looked at the black bars, they were very close across the board.
I'm gonna say I like the QL3000 on that, and I know you guys are saying you don't want to include it, but I'm doing it.
Oh, I say include it.
It had the brightness. It had that nice big rich gold. I actually liked the Valerian on this one too. The Valerian did a good job on that particular scene, I think. It's not as bright as the QL3000, so I prefer the QL3000. But like you said, all of them did this scene surprisingly well, I think. At least on those top 4 players that we're talking about. So, John, did you have a preference?
I really didn't, honestly. They're so close. I could kind of agree with Ryan on this one. I felt that they were so close that it's little things like the gold color, right? I know the Valerian had a more vibrant gold color with the QL3000 as well, but it also had some, like the lunar surface was a little more, say, gray than taupe. Just from the, again, we've talked about color, but just from I don't know, it's really hard to pick on that one. I think you throw a grenade, you'll hit one of them.
So you guys don't want to come up with a single one. We'll move on. No winner.
I'd be making up an answer. I don't want to do that.
Agreed.
Waking up in 1917. So he's just come out of the coma. As far as getting knocked out, he's climbed up the top of the stairs. He's looking out the window, and then he's running through the streets. HDR.
This is another kind of an easily JVC for me. Another one.
Is there disagreement from anyone? John?
I'm actually going to talk Valerian again. I thought the Valerian was a little sharper with the bricks when he was running on them. The individual bricks stood out. Granted, that's one small piece of the scene, but I don't know. That's a toss-up, really, in my perspective.
Sharpness that's one of the advantages of DLP, right?
Yeah.
Ryan?
On that one, it's going to be the JVC.
I'm fairly in that JVC camp as well on that one. It has the most natural look at those real night scenes. Galadriel versus Orc on the High Tower. So we said this one was for contrast, highlights, and sharpness. Galadriel has her skin tones. It's kind of a low dark scene, but it's got some big HDR highlights in it. This one's a little trickier to me, I think. But I think that ultimately for me it was the NZ500 on that scene. I thought that one looked good on the top 4 pretty universally. I do think that the Epsons did something weird with Galadriel's face. Like her skin tones didn't seem as natural as the NZ500 to me on her face for some reason. And so that was further cementing the NZ500 for me.
Yeah, the Epsons did something weird on her face. I don't know if it was something going on with the tone mapping, because those movies have some wonky tone mapping. They're known for that. So I don't know if that was related, but the JVC didn't do that. But the JVC is also not going to be as reliant on metadata as the other ones, because the Epsons are static and the JVC is going to be dynamic. I preferred the JVC.
Sheldon?
So this is one of the few where I like the Valerian better than the Epsons. I'd have to see it again to decide between JVC, but I don't want to vote for JVC all the time. So since I'm not sure, I'm going to go Valerian.
I would agree with you on the Valerian above Epson. Epson was doing something weird, and Valerian didn't. I just think
But again, for me, the weird stuff was color. So I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah, I'm kind of tossed up between the 500 and the Valerian as well. I'd have to see him again to really get nitpicky on which one I thought did it better.
Gun to your head.
Shit, I don't know. Let's go 500.
Lucy, car color fibers. They're sitting in a car downtown. The camera's close up behind Lucy's head. It shows her pores on her cheek. It shows these little weird multicolored threads coming out of the sky. They're pulling the threads apart. Color loaded, bright, daylight. Ryan.
I don't know that I could tell a difference on this scene. So I don't have a favorite because I couldn't really tell.
John.
So I like the Valerian for the same reason I like the QL3000. So the fiber colors, I felt that all the different rainbow of colors, and maybe you guys have seen the rainbow effect, but anyway, they had a little more pop to them. Where the 12,000 was really close to it as well, but the 9,000 wasn't even part of that conversation. But I would say Valerian, sure.
Sheldon?
So this one was kind of funny for me. So I noticed on the 12,000, I'm like, they kind of, whatever the red push or whatever, it gave her a nice tan. And I liked it. So I'm going to go 12,000.
I'm going to the QL3000 on this one. To me, that was not even close. The QL3000's colors was right up there. The sharpness is off the charts. The brightness is there. There's no reason for the contrast to be of issue. The lesser contrast 3001. That was, to me, absolutely QL3000. All right, Furiosa. Sheldon, start us off.
Man, talk about a different interior of the cab of the truck.
That was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, you watch the 3000, it's like, man, it's It's very bright and cheery in here. And then all the others, it was kind of a darker. That's another one I'm not sure what to go with. I think I'd have to see it again, see those comparisons again. I might go 3000 on that one. Let's go 3000.
John?
Yeah, I agree. 3000. It was a very bright day when you turned that one on versus the rest of them, and I think that scene is supposed to be that way.
Ryan?
You can say 3000, Ryan.
I'm not going to. LS12000.
Ryan's typing 3000.
That's up here. Ryan only liked QL3000.
3000. No.
Absolutely QL3000 for me on that one. I will tell you, I've been mostly quiet about the Valerian. On this one, it was the worst RBE of anything we demoed. I figured out through the course of the Avatar clip and through the Furiosa clip that steel colors or silver colors make that RBE effect tremendously strong, and I see it all the time. Like even when the projectors were overlaid, if we had an Epson up or a JVC up and the Valerian was on at the same time as we were switching, the image would become very unstable to my eyes, and I can't really be a judge of the Valerian because it's just fundamentally incompatible with my eyes. Like I am seriously affected by that RBE effect. For instance, when the Furiosa clip, when we watched it on the Valerian, there's that stainless steel drum that they've got the vegetables in or whatever they're transporting, and the fuel is on the other end. Here's the tube that's pulling behind the semi, and behind it, like a rocket ship, like something out of some 1960s LSD fueled cartoon, are these RGB stripes of red and green just going across the screen. And when it showed the cabin in there and they're both in there driving, there's silver behind their heads, and the cab is just it's like I have to close my eyes. It's so strong. There's just red and green flashing like mad all across the screen. And so RBE was always present for me with the Valerian. Ryan said he tried to ignore it. I can't really ignore it. And I absolutely can't ignore it if there's a lot of bright silver in the screen, because it's just you can't turn it off. It's just crazy. So fundamentally incompatible with my eyes. You're not going to get my vote, Valerian. I can't do it. Whatever's wrong with my eyes compared to that technology is just strong. I think we covered them all then, right? At that point,
I think so.
So I wanted to mention real quick for RBE for me. I always had, maybe I hadn't read, maybe I read and forgot, but I thought I had read that not that high a percentage of people are affected by RBE. I think that's not right. It's just a lower percentage are affected in a big way, like you maybe. But I definitely saw it. Anytime there was text up there, I saw it. If I moved my head or eyes back and forth real quick, I could see it on any scene, but that's dumb. Who's going to watch it? So I didn't worry about that. The only time I could remember it on a scene that didn't have text was weirdly the John Wick when they were fighting, which I don't think that makes sense because it was a dark scene, but that was the only time I saw it.
so for me, it's not just the red and green lines, which are the most pronounced things, and they're just everywhere. It's also it feels like an instability or an unsteadiness of the image that my eyes are picking up all the time. So even if it's not slamming your face RBE, it's like the colors are shifting or doing weird things in my vision, and it never stabilizes 100%. Every time we switched off the Valerian to whatever was next, it was like a welcome relief, like a sigh of relief in my mind, because it's unsettling, frankly. Just my vision. I am not saying that's for everyone. I'm saying that's for me. Clearly, this is the second time I've seen the Valerian. Both times it was doing that. Now,
sorry.
As far as bugs and stuff, Ryan said earlier in the podcast that they seem like they've matured through these various firmwares they had, and I agree with that. A year ago or whatever it was that we saw the Valerian when it was still pre-release, there was a lot of bugs and stuff, and we didn't notice that many bugs last night. About the only thing you noticed was sometimes EBL kicked in and sometimes it didn't, but it wasn't artifacty, really. I mean, it wasn't obnoxious. It was just kind of sometimes it wasn't engaged. For instance, I'll give you an example. With the gravity intro, it never really, because it's got a white text on there, it never really faded to like a nice contrast. It was the 1800-to-1 contrast with the deep in space type text on there. Other times, like the Dark Phoenix Alien in the Woods scene, the contrast looked really good. Like it didn't have that 1800-to-1 contrast ratio, or at least by looks. Everything was clear. So I don't know how they're doing the algorithm. I wish other people would try to copy a little bit more, like Epson would try to copy a little bit more, because it seems like it's making great strides, but maybe it's still not quite perfected in the sense of when it can engage or when it does engage. But I didn't notice, like, didn't seem buggy at this point with the use case on this demo set.
I would agree.
Oh.
It was dramatically better. So good that I thought for its price point, it's a good projector. I mean, it was great for $3,000. No question. If you're in the market for a projector at that price point, it's probably the projector to get.
I mean,
I know what you mean, Jonathan, by the unstable
Yeah.
thing. I can't really put my finger on it. I didn't see it all the time, but every once in a while. So much less of the RBE issues, but just like just something. But I mean, I liked a lot of things about it. It's nice and punchy, bright. When we compared it head to head with the LS12000, when you put the stock settings on the LS12000, I thought the overall image, as far as contrast on both of them, looked very, very similar. Even the colors looked more similar, but I greatly prefer those dynamic settings that you use on the 12,000. And when you use those, to me, it made it
But the stock settings,
significantly
you're
better.
taking it out of dynamic, aren't you? Yeah.
Right,
He's saying like
Jonathan?
using natural or cinema
Yeah.
mode instead of tune dynamic.
And then you don't get full fade to black, and
You
plus
don't
it just doesn't
you
look
don't
as
get the
good.
laser dimming that's super aggressive on the LS12000 and only dynamic mode.
But if somebody were to just put it on dynamic and not change anything else, it would not look good. Isn't that correct? You have to.
The colors
there's
would
more
be
to
pretty
it.
bad. So that's
Yeah.
where Dave Harper had kind of given a baseline to say, like, here's how you can do the GM slider scale to get to where it's approximately a good place to start, and then fine tune from there with the dynamic mode. And so every single owner's thread forum on the owner's thread all uses dynamic mode on the LS12000 because the measured contrast is so much better in that mode. It's like the dynamic is more for laser dimming than it is for the picture settings, as far as the way Epson names that. Now, interestingly enough, dynamic mode doesn't seem to do much of anything on the QL3000 compared. I shouldn't say that. It does activate the laser a little bit more aggressively, but the final black floor doesn't seem to be nearly as good on the QL3000 as the LS12000 at dynamic mode. So I've found on the QL3000 that cinema mode is my favorite with with almost out of the box settings, like some slight tuning. Whereas I didn't think the out of the box settings on the LS12000 were that great. So just neither here nor there, just a little bit of interesting conversation on those models.
Let me jump in real quick on the RBE that we started this off with.
Sure.
I see the RBE as well, but I have to really pan my head to really, like, if I look off the screen, look back on the screen, I'll see the RBE. Most of the time I can't. Text maybe a little bit, depending on motion, for example. I've had about 15 or 20 family members in the last 4 months through my setup, and no one has said of that panel that what's wrong with this thing. I see a bunch of crazy rainbows. Now, I didn't say, hey, everybody look for this RBE, see if you can see it. I just left it alone, natural review. And like my son, for example, we've talked about it. We know he can see the same thing that I can see, but no one else has complained from that, just from a sample point. So,
yeah,
John, your room is lighter than Jonathan's, right? Like the walls and stuff. Has anybody said anything? Do we know, like, is RBE more impactful in a darker room? Maybe.
That's a
Is that
great
possible?
question. I don't have an answer to that.
I don't know.
I've not heard anybody make that correlation yet.
Well, I guess,
but that's a good idea.
You saw it in both rooms, and I guess it's just one sample, but you didn't notice like it was any stronger in Jonathan's room than yours,
No.
though, right?
No.
Okay.
Well, anything else?
Chat posts a good question. If you omitted the QL3000, would the LS12000 win?
I think that comes down.
Not all the time.
I think that comes down to implementation in the room. For example, like I said, I think in Jonathan's room, the NC500 was really good, and that would be a tough call for me to go between the two. But that's a really dark room. You put in a room like mine that is nowhere near that dark. I might like the extra light. So
Jonathan's room's kind of bright.
yeah, for me, right?
Sheldon,
Right.
turn your laptop around and show how dark your room is with the front velvet. Can you do that or not?
No. I mean, you wouldn't be able to see it, so it'd just be black.
So dark. Yeah, for what it's worth, Sheldon's room, the front third of it is velvet. And here, John, to put this in perspective, what you're talking about, and I've shared this story in the forums before. I liked the NZ500 in Sheldon's room so much that I wanted to buy it immediately after our first movie night. I was like, this is next tier. This is amazing. I bought one. I got it home, and I thought mine was maybe defective because it didn't look like what Sheldon's did. So I quickly arranged, like the next day or whatever it was, arranged with Sheldon to come over and like spend some time. Like, let me look at mine in your room and see if it's defective, so I can send it back if it's a problem. Same thing. We got over there, and it was like you couldn't tell them apart hardly. So what that taught me is that the black room matters more than I really gave it credit for, and you have to come to some sort of compromise, right? Like I don't have totally black. Obviously, there's wood grain below there. I put a black carpet down. I put some velvet in the front of my room. Those things helped, but I still can't. Like if you like the NZ500 in my room, go watch it in Sheldon's room, and it's like another animal altogether. Like if you're going to do the JVC things, you need to black out your room. So you're on point.
And not just black, velvet.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, the black paint isn't the same.
And so, I mean, we all have to balance that. Is the aesthetic of black velvet something you're interested in to pursue the absolute best image? You figure that out for yourself. But just know if you buy a JVC that you're leaving performance on the table unless you go to that level. To the point that I thought maybe my NZ500 was defective, and it wasn't. It's just my room was defective.
Yeah, we measured it, and
yeah,
it was all the same.
Side by side, and it was like so close it didn't matter. And I was thinking like, oh boy, well that means I got to put some velvet up and get a black rug and like change some things. And so
velvet pajamas.
I did a little bit, and it did matter. I'm still not to the level Sheldon is, but it looks better now than it did. All right, what do you got? Anything starred from comments on topic per se?
Let's see.
Somebody asked what screen I have. It's a Elite A4K material is what it's called.
So Wally46 asks, what do you guys think of the new Valerian Max? It's their flagship projector. I think that's for John to answer. I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, I don't know that I know enough about it either, not having one, not seeing one. So, I can only comment on what I've seen on the forums and other videos, but just, I feel like experiencing the Pro 2 and then looking at the LS12000, one thing I'm going to jump back for a moment on that other conversation about the LS12000 being picked, potentially if it wasn't for the QL, and then come back to this. But the LS12000 has a 5,000 to 1 native. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah. And so if you want a more consistent image, and this ties a little bit back to what you talked about earlier on with the gravity scene, Ryan, if you want a more consistent image where you're not seeing an 18,000 to 1 and then a 10,000 to 1 with the laser dimming going on, definitely the 12,000 is the way to go, I think there. Thinking about the Max and how that might compare, I think the values that I've seen so far is in a reasonable iris setting where you're not destroying the light output. So not lasers or light or 6, maybe 4, somewhere in there. You're getting around 3,800 to 1, and so that might be a little more consistent where you're not jumping as far as the Pro 2 does when it comes out of its laser dimming. between back and forth. So it might compare a little closer to the LS12000, but I don't have, obviously I haven't seen one, don't have one, so we can't really comment on that. That's just looking at specs to specs.
Okay. MW says Hisense Vidya C5 RGB DLP. So this is the new king, which I'd be interested to see, is 6,000 lumens. So I'd assume very similar processing, very similar native contrast, maybe a little bit worse, maybe a little bit better, with double the brightness. What do you guys think that'll do?
Sounds like it could be great for football games with the lights on. That's what I'm looking for.
I mean, to me, I have zero interest in a single chip DLP. Like I wouldn't take one for free, so not gonna work for me. But
you don't like football, so
I don't like rainbows.
Miguel Muniz says, do I no longer... Oh, so this is not related to that. We'll come back to that. Wally says, one thing I noticed is you don't want too bright of a picture because it just causes eye strain and can take you out of the mood. Do you guys agree with that?
I don't really agree with that. I think eye strain is caused by other things. I use the QL3000 at 375 nits. It causes me zero eye strain. I'd take it brighter if I could. I had the QL7000 in here. I like that even more. And that's probably like 700 or 800 nits. I don't think the brightness is probably causing you eye strain. I think it's probably the technology that you're using that might be incompatible with your eyes. And I'll give you a very specific example. So you guys who have watched the podcast for a while know that I have a sensitivity to PWM in addition to DLP stuff. So PWM is where it's pulse width modulation. It's when the image is flashing. Instead of just drawing down the voltage to like 80%, if you want 80% brightness, it'll flash 4 frames of bright and 1 frame of black, that type of thing. So it's like severe differences in the brightness that make the analog change or the difference in brightness. Any rate, that PWM sensitivity on a RS2100, when I had that in here and I was trying to figure out what's wrong with my eyes, why is this RS21 hurting my eyes? I went on the forums and people were like, well, you're probably just not used to the contrast. You're not used to the brightness, or it's, turn down your brightness and see if it gets better. So I tried that. I tried turning down the brightness. Well, guess what happens when you turn on the brightness with something PWM oriented? It makes more black flashes to drop the brightness. And so it actually got worse for my eyes. So and then I'm watching it on like low laser, and all of a sudden my eyes are just like burning for days. And I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. This projector is frying my eyeballs. I went to a doctor who I went to like a specialist, tried to figure out what's going on with my eyes. Do I have some sort of health issue happening or what? They said, there's nothing wrong with your eyes. Tracked it down to PWM. So all that to say, like the forum people were saying, like, it's probably too bright for you. You're not used to the brightness. You just turn it down. It wasn't the brightness. It was the tech. It was the incompatibility with my vision. And so for whatever reason, the NZ500 doesn't do that same effect on my eyes. I haven't had any pain with that. But I'm just warning you that it might not be the brightness that's bothering you. It might be the technology that's being used to do the display.
Jeffrey Fry says, just joined. Was there any filming of the footage side by side that'll be published later with no commentary? There was not.
We don't even really have a reason why we didn't. We were planning on it. We just kind of talked about it. It seemed like it might get too heated. It's hard to portray what you're actually seeing through a video camera. And then you have people like saying, well, that's not what I see. Well, the camera's not picking up what people see. So
it gets really political.
Yeah.
Paul R33D, is the LS12000 4K or DLP? Jonathan, I'll let you.
I'm sorry, I was reading.
Is the LS12000 native 4K or DLP? It's
neither. It's native 1080p with a 4x pixel shift. So it takes every pixel of a 4K image and displays them one at a time, 4 frames per single frame normally, and it rotates them in a little square. I've got a video on my channel that shows how it works. So imagine the pixel just rotating in like a little square. 4 frames for one. It refreshes at 480 hertz per second instead of 120 hertz, and it rotates those all 8 million pixels from a 4K image in a little square. And your eyes can't see that fast. Like 480 hertz is way beyond vision. So when you're looking at it, it's akin to a 4K image. You're actually getting all the pixels. You're just not getting them all at once.
There you go. That is it. We've reached the end.
And
I'm
so-
ready for us to get ramsacked by everybody complaining about how our comparison was wrong.
On that topic, I think it would be worth just talking with you guys. So 116-inch image, we're sitting 10 feet away, 11 feet away. 4K versus native 4K versus E-Shift. How much difference did you see in sharpness, do you think?
Sharpness?
Not much.
Heck, even the 5040 UB at
And that's
1080p.
That's a 2x E-Shift. It's not a 4x either.
I had zero problem with. Resolution makes diddly as long as you're ticking the boxes, in my opinion. I just like to tell people that this was not a scientific comparison. It was very much subjective. And this is very opinionated, right? This is just what we liked. It's not what is best for the industry. It's not what is best. This was not a shootout. This was not anything. It was a comparison. It was what we liked. There is no winner. There is no loser. It is what each one of us individuals preferred. So before anybody gets on here and says, oh, you guys should have done this or this was very impromptu. This was Jonathan opening up his house, me having access to an LS9000. And really, it started with Jonathan and I just wanting to look at and take a look at the LS9000. And then Jonathan said, hey, what if we did a comparison? And I said, oh, no, I don't want to do that. And then he talked me into that. So it was an opinion on what we liked, looking at it with the given setting. Sure, if we had more time, we were looking through stuff, things may change. But that's where we sit currently.
Do you guys, would you have, or should we save it for, I think we're going to make an AVS forum thread on this where we might have more discussion and so forth. If you guys are up for it, did you want to like kind of rank front to end your preferences, or just leave that for the thread later date as you think about it more, or not do it at all? We kind of showed our best in the columns and so forth, our preferences.
I'm good either way. Whatever
I'm fine
people want to
either
do.
way. What were you guys' takeaways? Like in conclusion, because I'm gonna have to go soon.
I just wonder who the LS9000 is for. Like, why?
To be fair, so think of it this way: the LS9000. I was thinking about this when I was driving home from one of my daughter's activities. It's not image, yes, it loses, but it does have a motorized lens. It's $2,000 cheaper than the LS12000. So for people that are looking to spend less and trust the Epson brand, I understand why it exists. But if I didn't have an RBE sensitivity, I would choose the Valerian every time over that projector.
Yeah.
I would too, for sure.
Yeah, the only caveat to that, and I'm sitting here thinking about why would you choose the 9000? The only caveat to that, I agree 100%, would be if you couldn't get the throw ratio to work correctly in your room.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Is
throw's
that-
a big one, and the motorized lens is.
yeah.
But even there, wouldn't you guys, here's what's been running through my head the last couple of days. So the 5050 UB has been out for quite a long time, 5-6 years at this point. I've seen the 5050 multiple times. I've seen it compared to some of these other projectors. The 5050 is a better projector than the LS9000 in my opinion. It's got the ultra black panels. It's going to have the native contrast of 5000 to 1 ish.
Just watch SDR, or does it have better HDR on
The
it?
5050 has basically the same tone mapping as the LS12000.
Okay, never mind.
So like what's Epson doing with the 4000? I know it's a laser image versus a bulb, but you're giving up too much. I don't understand that. Do they still sell the 5050?
I'm
Yeah.
actually just checking.
Last I checked.
The LS9000
It's
might be a hair brighter by the time a bulb gets some hours on it, but Epson bulbs are pretty long lasting. I mean, people run them for thousands of hours.
Yeah, and they're like the same price roughly, right?
I think the 5050 for the longest time, maybe it's gone up in price with the tariffs and stuff, but I think the 5050 for the longest time was like $2,750 new.
Oh, I thought it was over 3.
So $2,750 to like $4,000 doesn't makes sense.
So looking at my price list, it's not available anymore.
Okay, they've just
Oh,
canceled
okay.
it out.
Okay.
Well,
Oh, the 9,000 is $4,000. I was thinking it was $3,000. Okay.
if we're giving feedback to Epson, I would say you gotta, for these projectors you're putting in a home theater line, man, you gotta use your ultra black panels. That there's a big difference between 1,800 to 1 and 5,000 to 1. There just is a big difference.
Mhm.
So unless you're using it in a living room or something, the LS12000 absolutely worth saving your money for.
I would agree. I think it's nice to have the cheaper option, but from a new standpoint, if you can get away with the mounting restrictions, I would take the Valerian
For
over
sure.
the LS9000.
Like, easily.
Mm-hmm. It's not close.
Unless you have bad RBE, for like Jonathan, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking just real frankly, I wouldn't want the LS9000. Like, I just wouldn't want it. And I'll be curious to watch some reviews unfold, like to see what people say, like how well it's received or whatnot. Its contrast level is just not good enough for modern displays. Like we're past all that. It feels like a display it's got a smoother image than displays 10 or 12 years old, 10 or 15 years old, but it doesn't have a better image than displays 10 or 15 years old. It just doesn't.
Were there any surprises for any of you guys?
Yeah, like the surprise to me was how much difference there was between the LS9000 and LS12000. That was the biggest surprise for me.
Sheldon?
Nothing crazy, because I had seen everything except for the Valerian and the 9,000.
John?
The black floor in the JVC, I thought was, you know, and by spec wise, it makes sense, right? It was incredible. I was surprised a little bit how close in a lot of scenes the LS12000 paired with the JVC as an overall. We talked about some black bars, and oftentimes they were quite similar between the two. But
Jonathan?
Well, I already answered mine. I'm curious to see the Valerian again, John. When the firmware comes out that is supposed to be reduced RBE, I'd be interested if that kind of solves some of the, not only the RBE effect, but some of the color instability that my eyes see. So keep me informed when that is available to you and when you have it. Maybe we can repeat this at your place or something. You know, I'll stop by and check it out or whatever. Just curious.
Right now, the conversation is expecting it early this month. So if it stays, there's, you know, you don't know until you have it in hand. But right now, I think some of the demo or the beta stuff that people have, it has it in there for the Pro 2.
Oh, another thing that I think is worth talking about that just came to mind. We always hear on the forums, and I think for a lot of years it was absolutely true, the DLP had the best inter-scene contrast, but I think these other companies are kind of catching up in that regard to a subjective level that it's not that different. So like if you think about all the content that we watch with these different clips, did the interesting contrast come into the mix as much as it has in the past? I mean, even just 2 or 3 years ago, the interesting contrast came into the mix, but I don't think that's the case with these models anymore, really.
With the content, you mean?
Yeah, like with the increasing ADL, not black floor, but just when there's something very bright on the screen at the same time as something very dim on the screen at the same time. Their JVCs, for instance, that used to be their pitfall. And not even that long ago, the RS2100 had that pitfall. The NZ7 had that pitfall. Where if something was very bright and something was very dim, you got a haze on the screen. And the modern JVC is not doing that. The NZ500, NZ700 is not doing that. And DLP has historically had that as a very good stat. Like their interesting contrast is usually very good. And Epson's interesting contrast is good enough where you're not bothered by it either. In fact, in some ways, I sometimes still prefer that, like the LS12000 interesting contrast. But But of all the models that were at the top, that wasn't really a deciding factor in this at this junction. I didn't think. So that was interesting to me. Just in the sense that it was something I could use before to determine a difference, to ferret out a difference. And this time, that was not really where the differences lie.
And I think like Ad Astra is a perfect example of that. We're all like, "What do you prefer?" We're like, "Meh, I don't
Mhm.
know." Because isn't that what you're talking about? That's a
Yeah,
perfect thing
that
for
type
that.
of stuff. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
No, we can call it a night. Good stream, guys. Thanks for your commentary and thanks
Yeah.
for coming over and doing this. It was fun. I actually enjoyed it. Like I say, I learned that we all see a little bit differently and that we still have different preferences, and that was fun.
I think the takeaway is if you see differently than me, you're wrong.
That's not the takeaway.
So last question, Majik asks, would you guys agree that in a very dark room, you can't go wrong with the NZ500 or the LS12000?
So that day you came over, Jonathan, to compare your broken NZ500 with mine in my room.
Yeah.
You also brought the 12,000.
Uh-huh.
It did not do bad. Do you remember that?
Yeah, but I think in a very dark room, I'm going to agree with you, Sheldon. I know where you're going to go. The NZ500 does best in a very dark room. Like,
Sure. But it wasn't like the 12,000 was
no,
bad
I
by
like
any
the
means.
LS12000. It's a great projector. But I think NZ500 has got it beat. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
In order to gain and really view those really high contrast numbers, you need a super, super dark room.
Yeah, not just
Any type of reflections,
with black curtains over big windows and stuff.
No.
That's not going to be enough.
You need velvet.
You need velvet. You need black surfaces. You need to darken it out. No, heck, even like little LED lights. We've talked about this before. With the Epsons, the black floor is not enough. Where you, like, if you have a little equipment light, like my little Focusrite USB mic here has a little green LED light. My camera light up there has a little blue LED light. Those kind of things with the Epson never show up on screen. Like the black floor is enough where you just don't see those LED lights. Doesn't matter. You put the JVC up there, the black floor is great enough that now those little stupid LEDs on the equipment throughout the room, I'm not even talking like an AVR display or an amp light. I'm talking about little tiny like single lights for like a pin light. They will lessen, they will degrade your JVC image. So when you're talking about dark room, that's where your head needs to be at as you kind of make that navigation.
Okay.
Can you tell my wife to turn the light on her watch off, please, Jonathan? She always has that light on. It kills me. Full fade to black. There's my wife's watch.
Now, to elaborate on that a little bit more, last night Ryan kept turning his phone on every once in a while, and he was in the back row for some of this. And when his phone would come on, the phone's facing the back of the room, and it would still light up the screen, even with the Epsons enough that it was like, "You're killing the contrast, man. Stop." So,
I'm
like,
just making it feel like a movie theater experience.
We're not saying that you have to have like both projectors can benefit from having a very, very dark room, because even like a phone light that's facing the wrong direction can detriment the Epson. But just smallest pin, like little circle LED light and stuff, can really hurt a JVC.
Okay. Well, before we go down another tangent, I'm going to wrap it up. So thanks for everybody for joining us. Thanks, Jonathan, for hosting. Sheldon, John, thanks for joining us yesterday. Jonathan, thank again for opening your projector collection for us to view and marvel at. I'm sure it will grow even further as we continue down this pathway. But hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I'm sure we will be talked about on the forums and people will get mad at us, but we'll see where it ends up. So that's all I got. Anything closing?
All right.
Nothing else? Okay.
Thanks,
We'll
guys.
wrap it
Thanks,
up.
guys.
Enjoy that home theater journey. Stay safe out